Welcome to Architects of Latino Success, the show where we highlight the voices, stories, and strategies of trailblazers shaping the future of Latino business and community. I'm your host, Joe Castillo. Today's guest is someone whose work is opening doors for countless Latino founders and entrepreneurs across the country. Laura Lucas is a driving force at Latitude Ventures, where she focuses on investing in Latino-led businesses and bridging the capital gap for underrepresented founders. Laura has been a familiar face at NAHREP events, and her passion for empowering our community is clear in everything she does. From her seat in venture capital to her advocacy for inclusive growth, Laura is helping to redefine what success looks like for Latino businesses in America. I can't wait for you to hear the insights and her vision for the future. Ready to get started? Vamos. Welcome to Architects of Latino Success. Today we have Laura Lucas joining us. Laura, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Good to see you again.
Exactly. I was just going to mention how we've had the opportunity to meet in person and have conversations on stage. So hopefully that our interaction here will continue in a nice flow as it did before. But thank you so much. Laura, so if you don't mind, giving us just a quick background on if for those that may not know you just yet, and that's kind of part of what this podcast is all about, is getting people to know you, is share a little bit about your journey and what brought you to your current role at Latitude Ventures.
Well, thank you. I think, some of our backgrounds is always really great to share with your audience, especially right now. One of the things that I'm extremely excited about is letting everybody know I'm originally from Guadalajara, Mexico. And yes, I am a tapatía, and I'm very proud of it. I was born there, came to the U.S. when I was very young, 7 years old, was raised in the Bay Area. Bay Area is like the San Francisco Bay Area, and grew up here. So I guess, if you will, I was born into the Silicon Valley culture, even though I wasn't exposed to it very much, because the town I grew up in outside of the Bay Area was called Vacaville. And yes, it is translated into Cowtown.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And so what's funny about it is, you're in the Bay Area, you think Silicon Valley, exciting, incredible, innovation. And then about an hour north of San Francisco, there's this town called Vacaville, and it sits between San Francisco and Sacramento. So it was interesting growing up there because I was never exposed to the financial markets. But lo and behold, today I'm the general partner of Latitude Ventures. We're a $100 million venture fund. And I'm proud to say that we invest in U.S. Latino and Latina founders at the early stage, from pre-seed to Series A. We've invested in 37 companies, deployed almost $60 million, and have seen incredible companies from the early stage all the way to the growth stage. Prior to being here, and why I think it's great to share a lot about where I started and where I am today, is the journey that it took for me to get here. Like I mentioned, I was born in Guadalajara and then raised in a small town in the Bay Area. So I was never really exposed to the financial markets. When I went to school, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be in some kind of aspect of law enforcement. I actually had dreams of being in the FBI, but all of that changed. After college, I ended up in San Diego, and I got a job. My first job out of college, I was a operations clerk for a brokerage company, which employed over 500 brokers across the United States that were managing money for their clients. And their clients had incredible amount of assets. And those assets, what I was seeing there as I was opening those new accounts, was millions and billions of dollars. And that is really what changed the trajectory in my career
Sure.
because I started to see that there was money and capital that I was not exposed to in my upbringing. And so I wanted to understand, how was this happening? How could I understand it? And that's what opened the door to Wall Street, which led my career in the financial markets. After being in the financial markets for over 10 years, I then left, became an entrepreneur. So took a leap of faith, built my own company, sold the company. And then after that, joined NASDAQ, where I saw the highest level of the capital markets, and seeing some of the largest companies that you know today, like Airbnb, Lyft, One Medical, Uber, all of these companies that are incredible. And then, of course, landing here at Latitude Ventures.
It's an amazing story. And so I want to dig in a little bit further. And it's obviously one of the reasons why I was so excited to have you on the podcast. Uh, and I was going to say your first generation story, but I'm always confused as to who is considered first generation or not.
I
But
was just having this conversation with my sister. I was like,
do we
no,
count? Do we not count?
generation.
I have no clue. But if we just move forward, but your story, obviously coming from Mexico, is so inspiring. And as you know, with such a big part of our audience and how we got to know each other through NAHREP, it's so many entrepreneurs that are first generation, and what have you. But I'd love to get back and ask you a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, because I know I read up a little bit about how you did have a W-2 job, obviously, and when you decided to make that leap, you got a little pushback from your dad, and it's just something that I just wonder what that dynamic was like, being first generation or coming from parents who worked super hard in that one job, and how did you make that transition and get yourself past that idea of just being an employee and being an owner, a self-employed, so to speak.
Yeah, that is something that, when I think about what you mentioned there about being first generation and then, what the expectations of the family has in terms of their vision for you. I think we all try to achieve at least what we think, the dream is for whether it's our family, whether it's the American dream,
Mhm.
whatever that dream is. And for my family, it's always trabaja, 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 which means work hard, work hard, work hard.
Yeah.
And so when I was in school, school was important, but it actually wasn't the primary thing for my family. It was like, you have to work. Even while I was in school, I put myself through college. Even in high school, I was working because I had to contribute to the family. Not necessarily out of, I would say, necessity, but also it's important that we had contribution from all the family coming in. And and so that was always like something that I was taught very early on, is you have to work hard, heads down, work hard. And so when I went after I graduated from high school and went to college, my parents were happy that I was going to college, but they wanted to know that there was a job after that college lined up that I was going to go into and make lots of money, right? So like I said, I didn't end up going to law school or going into the FBI. I did get a good paying W-2 job, very great opportunity, benefits, and the whole nine. And so my parents were extremely proud, and I was heads down. But what I was learning in that W-2 job was really understanding everything about the capital markets
Hmm.
that you don't really learn in school. You have to you have to be curious a little bit about what it means. And so while I was at this job, I decided to not only learn about Wall Street, but I got my licenses. And then I kind of held different positions at the firm that made me understand like the entire operations and the structure of it. And the last position I had there, before I took a leap, was one where I was going out and I was educating people on how to use technology. So again, this is kind of like early days, right, in technology, and I was helping people understand, hey, here's how to really leverage tech to again understand capital flows and really to understand how to read the capital markets. So one of the things that I learned is I was really good at selling. And so everywhere I went, I was, I was able to really do a great job at closing deals. And so that took me through not only my first job, but my second job and my third job, still being a W-2 employee. I was closing multi-million dollar deals. And there was two things that I had. I not only had the financial acumen for understanding what was happening in the capital markets, but I was also relatable and able to explain it and talk to people about it. And so that allowed me to, create incredible opportunities for companies out there, like TD Ameritrade, SunGard, FIS, Extiva, all these incredible companies. I closed, multi-million dollar deals. And so one day I thought to myself, wow, I'm closing all of this business for these, incredible companies. I just kind of thought I'm going to maybe consider doing that for myself. But what I never knew is what for.
Mm.
The what for didn't happen right away. Um, I love fashion. I was taught how to sew as a little girl. I've always made my own clothes. So what
The
I
entrepreneurial spirit was in you from the very beginning, it
yeah,
sounds like.
so so what happened was I started designing my own clothes. Actually, this jacket is one from my old fashion line. And so everybody was wanting to purchase some of the things I was wearing. And so as an entrepreneur, I started putting it online. And next thing you know, people were actually buying it. So I came to my father, going back to the initial question. I said, hey, I'm going to quit my 9 to 5. I'm going to start my own fashion company. And he's like, ¿Qué? Hola, what are you doing? And I said, look, I've saved up enough money for a year. And this is really important because for all the entrepreneurs out there, I gave myself a year in a defined time frame to understand the success of what I was going after. But I did all of the planning ahead of time and I did all the savings ahead of time. And then I did it. Then I left. I took that leap of faith. And it was an up and down journey, but I'm really proud of what I built, and I really proud that I was able to sell it and really realize something that I think we all sometimes struggle with, moving away from our comfort zone and taking that risk and being able to capitalize on that.
So you found your opportunity with clothing based off of your past, but at some point, obviously, something clicked for you, right? To kind of create a mission statement for yourself when it comes to championing underrepresented founders, and that's what brings us to the venture capital world, right? And Latitude Ventures. Can you talk about what inspired you to get to this level or to start working with Latitude Ventures?
Yeah. So I think it was kind of like this journey that I had when I was in working again at all of these different firms, heads down, not really recognizing that I was in a male-dominated field. I was rarely, uh, surrounded by any women, and therefore probably no Latinos and Latinas. So I didn't really question that. Then when I left and I started my own business, I would say it was female focused because I was selling fashion and clothes. And so that was very inspirational. But when I went to fundraise for my company, that was the first time that I really started to see the discrepancy and understanding of what I was building because it was female focused and fashion and the way that I was going to market was hard for people to understand, although it was early stages of fashion subscription. So today, subscription services are all over the place. But back then, subscription was just starting, and fashion subscription was new to the ecosystem. So helping men understand that in venture capital when they want to see a 10x return on certain, concepts was difficult. So the people that took the meetings with me, I would say, would either consult their wives, which was very funny, or try to find something where they understood how this business would grow. Luckily, I was able to raise capital and get some mentors along the way that helped me navigate raising capital at the early stages. But it was difficult, and that really opened my eyes to, hey, it's really hard out there to raise capital, not only for women, but just for underrepresented founders and really at all, right? Because you have to know who to go to, the network, the ecosystem, how to really develop this language that really speaks to investors, and who to court to really define that for you in the company that you're developing. So that was a experience that taught me a lot. After I left there, and I ended up, landing at NASDAQ, which was the complete opposite of the early stage. It's like the later stage, the mega, the billionaires, the height of technology and success. And again, but the same kind of reality was there. There were very few women that were exiting. There were very few women that were part of the ecosystem in the capital markets, and zero Latinos, non-existent. I think when I was at NASDAQ, I think there were 5, and we had to create an ERG to really try to figure out where they were all. Where
can we find them?
Where could we find them, and how can we bring more to the table? So that's when I just kind of started thinking to myself, and really there was a moment when I took one of the companies, the Real public, where we did this research about how many women entrepreneurs had founded companies and gone public, and it was like 20 in the history of Wall Street. And I don't think much has changed now. So that's when I started having more intent behind really understanding why this capital structure was held with so few and why it wasn't unlocked for many. And so I left NASDAQ, and then I started a consulting firm called Pandocap. And Pandocap was based on the pandemic capital markets, because I started it right during the pandemic. And if you remember that, obviously the markets contracted, but then they exploded. They went crazy.
Yeah.
That is when I was being intentional about meeting with founders that were underrepresented, and then trying to get access to capital for them, or working with later stage companies and finding investors that could get on the cap table of these later stage companies. So for example, if you think, how do I get into a SpaceX today? Do you know how to get into a SpaceX? No, because it's a private company.
Right.
Well, how do I figure out how to get people who want to access that private company, that opportunity? And so not a lot of people know how to access that, right? And so those were the types of things that I was doing intentionally for underrepresented communities to help them build wealth. And so in that process, that's how I met the founding partners of Latitude, and would join them on this journey to build the largest Latino and Latina venture fund here in the U.S.
I love that. I love, thank you for detailing that journey and letting us know why Latitude Ventures is so important in the venture capital landscape out there right now. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you see and opportunities you see for Latino entrepreneurs in today's market?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we've all seen the challenges, not only in this year and last year's market, specifically in the capital markets, because a lot of the liquidity was locked, because there was not a lot of IPOs, there wasn't a lot of M&A, and we're hoping that with the new administration, that would, get a little bit more unlocked and have some more growth opportunities. But based on some of the uncertainty that's happened, it's really created just longer cycles across everything, whether it's longer cycles on raising capital for entrepreneurs, longer cycles on, validating the growth opportunities. It's just everything is taking longer. And then you have to think through the planning and the strategy a lot deeper, because there's so much volatility in different ecosystems. Like, you can be building a beverage company, and then one day, the tariffs impact aluminum. Aluminum is what you have on your cans. And so then you have to understand the margins that create the products that you're building, and understand how you're able to adjust for that. So there's just a lot of things that you have to consider outside of what I would say. You should always consider everything, but there's just a lot more dynamics going on in the world that you need to understand to really think about starting, building, growing, capitalizing, and exiting a company. And especially if you're trying to get venture dollars for it, because on the venture side, we have an expectation to return capital to our investors at the rate at, a 10x rate. Because if you just wanted a lower rate, you would just go invest and put your money in the bank or put it in other assets that, have a lower yield. So our dream is to have that money, 10x, so that we can not only return the fund, but create wealth for the founders, our investors, us, and our ecosystem.
Yeah, I can imagine. Obviously, higher risk, higher reward needed, right? You're looking for those unicorns out there.
Yeah.
I know you have a role with Nopalera. Do you think those types of opportunities are things that Latino entrepreneurs should lean more into? Is creating something within their Latino community? And you think, thanks to venture capital firms like yourself, like Latitude Ventures, there are now people willing and able to listen and see these opportunities from people?
Yes, I'm really proud of Nopalera, and I'm on the board, and Sandra is an incredible testament to not only being the founder, but being a woman and being a leader in our community and building something that represents us in an elevated way. And I think when you go and try to build companies with a mission and a purpose, and build a brand behind it that can help support and expand not only jobs, but then expand a cultural aspect of what we represent, not only here in the US, but globally, and then define that in a way that gives access to everybody. So think of like Nopalera, think of Modelo, think of Topo Chico, think of the Seven one that just exited as well. Those are all incredible brands that did a great job of understanding their client, their customer, their value, and what the differentiation is that they're representing. And so I think when you think about as a founder or as an investor in what is being built here, you have to think about who is the community that it's serving, and how can that also expand beyond that community into an opportunity that is endless. And when with Sandra, she has this incredible beauty brand that is culturally relevant, but it's for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
The fantastic nature of the fragrance and the soaps, it's a nostalgia of what we that represents our Latinidad. And that is something that whether it's us or whether somebody else is smelling that or feeling that or experiencing that, that's a beautiful thing. And so I think anytime you can represent that and really expand that in a very intentional way, it's beautiful.
One of the things that we try to talk about on this podcast is leadership and how you view leadership. And obviously, you being a leader, a Latina leader in finance and investing, just wondering what some of the lessons you've seen or you learned that might help others break barriers in industries where Latinos are still underrepresented.
That's a good question. I think, I would say there's definitely the things that I see in really successful entrepreneurs and leaders is that they adapt.
Mm.
That they adapt and they're able to take in information, and whether it's good or bad, and not immediately like react to it in a positive or negative way, but really take it in and then think through, how they're going to either work through it, overcome it, leverage it, and move forward. Because having setbacks and having challenges is just a part of life, and it will definitely be a part of entrepreneurship. It will definitely be a part of leadership. And so it's how you handle those things and how do you work through those things that really sets you apart as a leader. And how you're able to not only work through them, but the most important thing on the other side is people, right? I mean, everything that we do, whether it's as an employee, as a leader, as a founder, as a family member, we have people around us that come with all different perspectives and all different dynamics. So I think the most important thing you can do is listen and then learn from what they're telling you, and then communicate back. It sometimes might not be what they want to hear. It might be something that could be challenging, but it always comes back to how you deliver that and how you understand how to move through challenges. So that's what I think true leadership is. It's someone who can really take the information and process it and then lead in a way that makes everybody come along and feel comfortable with decisions that are being made, because there's decisions that we make every day that affect everybody.
100%.
All aspects of our lives.
All aspects, 100%. I do hear that all the time about how you learn more from a loss than you do from a win, right? Things like that. And I hate to put you on the spot, but just wondering if you can think of a time in your life where you had where something came up like that, where there was a failure perhaps, or maybe people necessarily weren't supportive of the decisions you were making, and you were able to process all that information and still push through. I mean, if you can think of one.
Oh, I have so many silly ones.
Yeah, let's go with that. No. I mean, we did touch on your father, obviously, kind of pushing back when you decided to become an entrepreneur, but you might have others.
Yeah, I think that one is a good one. When you think about that journey, was very interesting to me in many ways. I think being a founder teaches you, again, like what we just talked about, not only how to have compassion for other people and lead, but really understand like all the dynamics of what you said, whether it's winning or losing. And so there were times in my company, because every company is a roller coaster at the early stage, where I had to let people go.
Hmm.
And you don't, doing that is never gets easy. And I don't know what's gonna happen in the future with AI and how that's gonna translate. But for me, like, I'm very intentional about the people that I hire, and I'm very intentional, in understanding what motivates them, and how to build teams and how to grow and lead. And so back then, this was someone who, it was really hard for me to let them go. But what I realized after I let them go was it just wasn't, their skills did not meet the need
Mm-hmm.
that was happening at the time for the business. And it was not only holding us back, but it was holding them back.
Right.
And so what I ended up doing at that time, and this happens a lot in all companies, is I ended up really understanding what that other person, the skills that they had. And I took it upon myself and recommended them for another role at another company and referred them out. And they got the job, and they were so happy. They were so happy. And so it was less about, me letting them go. It was just not the right match. And I think I did go a step beyond and help guide them into another landing spot, which, I think that's the right thing to do. I don't know if we can do that for everybody in large organizations, but if you can support somebody in understanding what their needs are and how to help them develop that, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, you want to support the people that have supported you. And so I really appreciate your time today, Laura. I have a couple last few questions that I like to ask our guests. And one of them was in regards to writing a book, but you've actually written a book. Do you want to just touch on that real quick?
Yes, I'm really excited. This year was a big milestone year for me. I wrote my first book. It's called Latinas in VC. And this book represents incredible voices throughout our community of women and Latina investors. And the reason why I wrote it is because I wanted to give light to all of these incredible women who have capital, who are deploying millions of dollars into companies and actually generating incredible growth for all of these companies and building an economy that is so strong. But you don't hear about these women. You don't see these women. Why? Because of that same thing that I talked about earlier. We're heads down, we're growing, we're building. And what you see on the media is, the mainstream that we've talked about early, this network of people. And so I wanted to highlight that opportunity, not only for these women, and there's 33 incredible investors in this book, but also because I wanted this to be a guide for founders and for other investors to know, hey, where do I find these women who could potentially invest in my company? Hey, they're in this book. Where can I find incredible women that I want to invest in? Hey, they're in this book. So it's an incredible anthology of all the women who have access to capital that are building incredible ecosystems and growth in our economy, and they should be highlighted and celebrated for it.
That's amazing. Where can we find that book?
It's on Amazon, Latinas in VC. So would love if everyone can get one and support them and share it with the community, because it talks not only about where they invested, who they invested in, how they got there, but also tells us, truly how much capital is being deployed in the ecosystem today. So if you want to learn more about all these incredible women and also our journey. You can catch it on Amazon.
All right. Well, you got one more customer here. As soon as we're done here, I'm jumping on and getting one. And then the last question is just in regards to, what habit do you feel that you have that's can be considered unconventional, but has made the biggest difference in your success?
Unconventional.
Unconventional, yes.
Oh, well, so working out is, I guess I would say is pretty conventional. I would say I think I make it a habit. I work out every day. Unless like I'm on a plane for most of the day. But I would say what has kept me to that routine, and it really unlocks ideas for me, is being able to do it in 30 minutes. So 30 minutes, it's my 30 minutes. I unlock and I do it. When I have 30 minutes in my day, sometimes I have it in the morning, sometimes I have it in the afternoon, sometimes I have it in the evening, but I always take 30 minutes just for myself to move away from everything else and find that space where I connect with my body, my mind in a physical way, with working out, whether it's running, whether it's a class, whether it's yoga, tennis, I even do basketball sometimes, whatever. It's just some type of way to disconnect and be able to take that 30 minutes. That's helped me a lot. Just continue to push through, again, any challenges, but really have that quiet time.
Yeah, and I can imagine that skill of being super efficient with your time translates to other things in your life as well.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Laura, for your time and for sharing stories about yourself and obviously ways that other Latino entrepreneurs can grow and find potential mentors with your book. Thank you so much for your help and for your time.
No, thank you. This was great. I had a good time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you soon.